Hi, this is Marco Cantù. Welcome to this session on migrating VCL applications to iOS. I'm the Delphi product manager, and in the past I've been known as a Delphi book author, trainer, and consultant. I attended conferences throughout the world, and now I keep traveling as part of my job. The contact information is there. marco.cantu@embarcadero.com, and this is my blog and Twitter account references. So the topic of this session is migrating VCL applications to mobile. I'm going to shortly recap differences between VCL and FireMonkey. Nothing detailed because this is a very short session. Going to mention manual migration, and then I'm going to demo using Mida Basics, the converter done by Mauro Botta from Italy, and also mention some of the advantages of the full version of Mida. The basic version you can get for free with XE4. The full version is a paid product. So suppose you have a VCL application. VCL is bound to Windows and is there to stay. So if your goal is to keep your development on Windows and target Windows computers, you can certainly go ahead with the VCL. And because we are going to keep supporting this platform going forward, if you are okay to remain bound to Windows, if you want something that is more abstract and let you target multiple devices, Windows, Mac, iOS, and tomorrow Android, then you should consider migrating to FireMonkey. FireMonkey uses styles for platform-specific rendering, so you get platform fidelity, you get this look and feel for the platform, but on the other hand, the library is abstract and uses the GPU, the graphic processing unit of each platform, to provide good performance on different hardware. There are several differences in the architecture, although there is a resemblance. There is still a T-button and a T-edit component, but FireMonkey uses live bindings for data connection. This is another big difference. It's cross-platform by architecture, and this implies a lot of underlying differences in the code. The differences are not just like overall architecture. There have been also differences, like tactical differences, like the caption property is not used anymore, but has all been unified as text, as most frameworks do. And for example, we don't have left and top, but there is position X and position Y and potentially position Z for 3D applications. And again, as I mentioned, data-aware controls are gone. There's no more DB edit, but there is an edit that supports live bindings. This makes migration quite slow and error prone. You can just take your DFM files or copy and paste components from one side to the other, because there are all of these differences that you have to go through and adapt your code and DFM files to the this change in names, even for like standard and commonly used properties. So there is this third-party tool that is available for free in a basic version, is in a feature-limited version. It was available for XE2 users. It was available for XE3 users. There's a new extended version available for registered XE4 users. So once you buy XE4, if you already haven't done so, you can go to the registered users download and get Mida Basics. The complete version is on sale and has a lot of extra features. I'm going to mention some, but you should refer to midaconverter.com website for more information. So let's focus on a couple of short demos of migrating VCL applications to iOS using Mida. And on purpose, I haven't grabbed specific applications that come with a product. I've just decided to use a couple of demos that I've written in the past, like very generic ones, but some that might come from the real world. So this is a very simple demo. It has buttons, an edit, a memo, and an image control. So very straightforward components. And what this program does is just fetch some data from the web, links, HTML, or images. Now, if I had to manually migrate this code to FireMonkey, it will be troublesome, because if we have a look at the properties here don't match with the properties on the FireMonkey side. Well, there's this huge image, but these are the actual properties that are relevant. So there's no left, no top, no caption for the button. So it's a lot of tedious work. So what we can do instead, let's get back to the form. What we can do instead is to run the converter. If there is an open project, it will start with the open project. It finds VCL components and properties, and it can convert, and by default will save the new files in a subfolder. So this is the conversion that has been done. And now what we can do, we can actually open the new project. And this is the same project based on FireMonkey. Now this might work or might not. Actually it doesn't. Let's see if this compiles. No, it doesn't. Okay. Oh, because that was a separate unit where I had the problem. Okay, let's try this way. Still not good. There is a change in the code. There's no picture graphic. There's actually a bitmap property in FireMonkey, so we need to change the code a little. Now we have this application that runs in FireMonkey, but this doesn't look quite like an iOS application, of course, but that's actually an easy trick. What we can do is to view this code as text. In the form, view as text, and there are some properties here. Design a mobile. We can turn this to true, change some of the settings, and potentially turn this into a mobile form just by tweaking some of these settings. So now we could still apply a little bit of tweaks and update the UI and set up the proper position of this component and controls, and we will be able to turn this application into a mobile application. What I wanted to show you, however, is actually the conversion operation that's being done by Mida. The form properties are very similar. There are lots of differences in the form structure and height. Let's skip the image because the actual file hasn't been moved over. Let's look at the buttons and memo and other controls. You can see there's a lot of manual work. Position X left becomes position X, top becomes position Y, height remains, caption becomes text, and so on. So event handlers remain, and some of the features remain similar. But again, I mean, this is very significant change, very tedious if you want to do it manually. The other demo I wanted to show has data binding. So this is simple application that actually is hooked to a database, even at design time. So it's a simple FireDuck application. Actually, it's a dual FireDuck and DB Express app. And there is a DB grid, and there's nothing like a DB grid in FireMonkey. So when we go through the Mida converter and we convert this application, what happens is that not only there is a mapping of the DB grid to FireMonkey grid, but also there is the creation of a live binding structure. And if we look at it, live binding designer, and see how the data is tied to the grid. So again, not only we are converting the application, but we are also creating the live bindings from the data bound controls on the Win32 side. Let me get back to the slides for a second. So this was like my simple demo. There's much more in the full version of Mida or Mida, whatever you want to call it. Extended live binding support, style support, custom features of controls are mapped to styles, third-party component support, including reports and the ability to migrate reports from Windows-specific versions to cross-platform reports. Also the ability to update some of the Delphi and C++ source code. And finally, the automatic generation of mobile forms, which is what I want to just showing you this demo. This is what you can get with the full version. Start with a VCL application, data bound, actually quite complex structure with master details, and be able to convert it to iOS using the standard iOS style, or with a style that resembles the original look and feel of the application, completely off standard for iOS, but very close to the original structure. And here you can see all of the live bindings that are generated behind the scenes for the various controls on the form. That's all I wanted to cover for this short introduction. If you have further questions, feel free to contact me, or again refer to www.midaconverter.com for more information on the tool.
Anders last summer, it was based on an earlier version of Mida. Last July, I think it was, did a webinar on converting VCL applications to FireMonkey.
Yeah, that was actually quite detailed. There's lots of information in that webinar. And also, if you go on the site, there are demos, there are some videos that Mauro, the author of Mida, has done. Can guide you through the features.
Yeah, he's got different videos on the page as well, and information. And here's the mobile. There we go. Yep. And again, he's up to version 3.2. And if you FAQ all the details of what he can and cannot do in the full version with source code and so on. Stuart was asking, is this demo using the full application of the free app? You use the Embarcadero Edition, right?
I've been using the Embarcadero Edition on purpose because that shows what you can get out of the box. And again, if you're a registered user of XC4, you can just go to the the downloads, to the registered user downloads page, and get this version. There are extended features that are available in the full-blown version that are significant, including the ability to convert third-party code from third-party controls to other third-party controls, and also they have report conversion, so you can move away from older reporting systems to newer ones. I think they mostly support fast report as target.
Yeah, and I brought up the comparison matrix. We have the basic edition, and then there's a Pro and Studio edition that gives you more capability. So you can go to the MidaConverter.com page and then go to that URL. So I'm not sure. I haven't tried this. I don't think there's. Keith is asking, will Mida substitute an FMX mem table for a T-client dataset? I mean, I think it just leaves T-client dataset as T-client dataset, right?
Yeah, that's what it does. I think that if you have the Pro version, you can also instruct the engine with further customizations. So there is the ability to tune the engine, providing extra components and extra conversion rules, but by itself it won't do anything in terms of database objects. It just goes through the visual controls.
Yep. And non-visual controls, client data set, you use those in your examples, whether it's DB Express, whether it's FireDAC, whether it's client data set all on its own using as an XML database or a binary, whatever we call it, MyBase database format. So here's a question, not necessarily on this topic, but I'm sure you could answer too, is asking, when will T-Web browser be available on multiple platforms and for C++ Builder? Right now it's only for iOS, right?
Yeah, it's available only for iOS for now. It's not actually an issue in terms of C++ or Delphi, because it is not available also in Delphi for Windows and Mac. The problem is, I mean, we are looking into it, so it's something that we want to make available. But honestly, it's slightly more complex because on iOS and on Android, the web browser is a native component. It's a native control you just hook to. On Windows, the only thing that gets close to a web browser component is the Microsoft Internet Explorer as an ActiveX, which is what we are wrapping on the T-Web browser object on Windows. But that's a Windows-only solution, and it's hooked to a different engine. So one of the things that will be interesting that we're looking into is if there is one of the open engines like the Chrome engine or the WebKit engine that we can actually leverage. But it's not as simple as wrapping a native component.
Yeah, what I do on Windows and Mac is I use T-Web browser for iOS, and then I'll get that for Android. When I see that I'm on Windows, I call shell execute. So I do an ifdef for Windows, and I do a shell execute, pass it a URL, and it pops up a window with whatever the default browser is. And on Mac, I use a system call with a URL and whatever the default browser. I think on Mac it's Safari. I don't know if there's another way to set. Maybe I can have Chrome be default. But I use those two calls in ifdefs to load separate windows.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility, but it would be nice to have like the same integration. But again, it's not something we can do, but it's not as simple because there's nothing built into the platform that you just have to wrap. You have to actually ship an entire web browser.
Eric, if you want to run the iOS simulator, you need a Mac.
Yeah, the Mac is required not by us, but is required by Apple. So the simulator runs only on OS X.
Yep.
And so some of the utilities that we are using to do the code signing, to do other operations that are required for iOS development. The only alternative option is to use like Mac in Cloud or one of the services that provide legally a remote Mac running on the cloud, so you can actually run the simulator on the NPI server on this in-cloud Mac systems.
Does the Mida Converter offer to view changes before committing? It just converts. Well, go ahead, Marco.
I think it has a log of what it has done more, and then it leaves a lot of commands here and there in the code to make sure you can like roll back some of the things that have changed. Don't think there's like a list of things that are going to happen beforehand, but I haven't used it as much, so but I haven't seen such a feature.
And again, Stuart and Marco showed this. It creates a copy of your project in a separate subdirectory, and you can point that it either creates a FireMonkey subdirectory where your project is, or you can tell it where to generate. And if you don't have a project open in the IDE, so Mida Converter is an IDE plugin, then it'll ask you for what project you want to convert, but it does not modify your existing project source code in any way. So it creates a whole new subdirectory, and in there is your new project file and your new source files and your new form files, everything that it can convert. Okay. Now the question, can you attach a device to Mac and Cloud? I'm not aware of right now. There's some discussion that they've been looking at the idea of on your local machine plugging your device in through USB, and if you're connected to a Mac and Cloud, but I don't think that's a feature that's available today for Mac and Cloud. For now, Mac and Cloud is only using the simulator on the Mac that's running in the cloud, not specifically to converting applications. And again, some people have said to me when I've shown Mida Converter, they go, well, if it doesn't convert everything, then why should I use it? Well, you know, you could hand convert, or you could take VCL and put some of the VCL in a DLL and use it on FireMonkey Windows, but it does a lot of that work for you, as you saw, as Marco saw, even simple example. Imagine you've got 20, 30 forms. It'll convert a lot of it, and it'll leave messages, right, comments and things for things that you still have to do, and then compile, and compiles fast and see what else you have to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the perfect conversion is close to impossible. There are two things around it. One, when you have the full version of Mida, what you can do, you can convert. You can see which things are actually wrong and instruct the tool. I mean, if you have like hundreds of forms that have the same components, maybe custom components or other third-party tools, you can instruct it and try repeating the conversion with further fixes until you get something that's satisfactory. So it's not just a one-shot operation. You can actually go multiple rounds, fine-tuning the conversion rules up front. And that I think is relevant. But then also, even if it's converting only 60% like the button positions, but not other things, I mean, it's still, if you need that exact UI, it's a lot of tedious work. And even if the UI you need is different, that you need the buttons to be completely different places, only the fact that it's going to move the buttons over, it's going to move the on-click handlers over. If you have action lists, it's going to move your actions over. And then you can even rebuild part of the UI, but still you have a good part of your code migrated automatically. I mean, just the idea of thinking like I have 10 buttons and recreate a new form, and for each of the buttons I hook the same on-click event handler. That's a lot of manual, tedious, and error-prone work you have to do. That this is completely safe if you do this automatic migration.
Somebody was asking about what reports, report conversion, quick report, fast report, ... in the Studio edition, but there was a link here. So quick report to fast report. Yeah, so it looks quick report to fast report. It looks like quick report to fast report. Yep, at least currently. But you know, Mauro, you know him, Marco. If people contact him and ask for things, he just does it. I mean, yeah. He's committed and adding features and keeps doing lots of new things on top of the default behavior. And again, there's a lot of styling creation based on existing controls and a lot of advanced life binding support. So it really leverages the features of FireMonkey. It doesn't just try to move over only what's available, what is similar in the VCL and FireMonkey, but also tries to move around things that are different. Like again,
moving to data-aware edit boxes to live binding for regular edits, or again, if you have like a strange colored component, create a style behind the scenes. Again, only the full version, create a style behind the scenes so you can get the same UI, even if it's done a completely different way in FireMonkey.
And again, for some of the questions, you can go to the Mida FAQ and see what's listed there. Here's a list of components that he recognizes down here. T-chart, yes. There was a question about frames. Frames are new for FireMonkey, at least.
The frames are supported, and
okay.
I think they should move over. Also, there's a question about the back to the previous session, the RSS feed. If you drop in an HTTP component, you need to turn on the allow redirects option of HTTP. Otherwise, it won't work because it's not the physical URL. It's mapped to another URL behind the scenes. So if you just drop the HTTP component without turning on the handle redirects, the code won't work.
All right, we're at the top of the hour. There's a question here about core graphics, chess programs, graphics 32 library, FireMonkey low-level graphics. I'd go to the doc wiki.
Yeah, I haven't actually done much personally at that level. So
there's a canvas. You have a canvas, and you can do whatever you want on the canvas to draw shapes. And then there's 2D and 3D components, circles, rectangles, ellipses, 2 and 3D things that way. Ultimately, you have the canvas at the lowest level. So, but yeah, DocWiki is a good way. What do you do about converting DevExpress grids to FireMonkey? I don't think that's one that he does anything specifically with the DevExpress components. Maybe.
Yeah, this is a very complex grid, so it's very difficult to convert to something that is not reasonable. I know that there are some grids being worked on by third parties to bring extended grid features to FireMonkey, but
TMS has their grid for FireMonkey.
Yeah, TMS has a very nice grid.
Multi-column sorting it does, and they're adding more features all the time. That might be a good question for
Bruno. Yep.
At 9 o'clock this morning. That's mostly all the stuff. So again, Marco, thank you. Have a safe flight back to Italy.
Okay, thanks a lot.